Hello and welcome to the beautiful St Andrews Botanic Gardens. My name's Sheila Kinninmouth and I'm a storyteller. And I'm going to tell you a story which is one of 4 watery tales that I'm recording here in the gardens as part of the Scottish Storytelling Centre's Big Story Ripple. Now this story is about a little creature who stays right here in the gardens. She's small, she has a reddish coloured fur all over her body, she has a big bushy tail and she likes to run up the trees. Can you guess what it is? Of course, it's a squirrel. Now this squirrel was a very good little squirrel. She always did what her mummy asked her to do, just like you. And one day Squirrel's mummy said, would you go down to the pond and gather some berries, because I'd like to make a pie. Of course I will, said Squirrel, and off she scampered down the path to the pond. And she walked a little bit, and she skipped a little bit, and she ran a little bit. And then she met one of her friends. Now this friend, he's quite small too, and he lives amongst the leaves, and he's covered in prickles. You're right, that's a hedgehog. And when Hedgehog saw Squirrel, Hedgehog said, where are you going, Squirrel? And Squirrel said, I'm going down to the pond to gather some berries for my mummy. And when she said that, Hedgehog said, oh no, you're not going down to the pond, are you? Do you not know there's a terrible thingybob in that pond? A thingybob, said Squirrel. I've never heard of thingamybobs before. And anyway, I'm no scared of anything. I'm going to get the berries. So Squirrel skipped off again down the path. And she walked a little bit, and she skipped a little bit, and she ran a little bit, until she met another friend. Now this friend usually just comes out at night, and he lives in a big hole under the ground, and he's got a white stripe down his face. Have you guessed who he is? Of course, he is Badger. And when Badger saw Squirrel, Badger said, good morning, Squirrel, where are you going in such a hurry? And Squirrel said, I'm going down to the pond to gather berries for my mother. Oh no, said Badger, you're not going down to the pond, are you? Did you not know there's a terrible thingybob in that pond? A thingybob? Well, Hedgehog told me that, but I just told him, I'm no scared of thingamybobs. I'm no scared of anything. I'm going to get the berries by the pond. Bye-bye. And Squirrel shot off down the path. And she walked a bit, and she skipped a bit, and she ran a bit. And after a wee while, she heard another friend calling to her from high up in a tree. Now this friend doesn't often come out during the day as well. He's a bird and lives up in the trees and goes, do-it-do! Have you guessed who that is? Of course you have. That is Owl. And Owl looked down from the top of the trees and called out, hello, Squirrel, where are you off to in such a hurry? And Squirrel said, well, I'm going down to the pond to gather berries for my mum. Oh no, said Owl, you're not going down to the pond, are you? Do you not know there's a terrible thingybob in that pond? Well, so everybody keeps saying, said Squirrel, but I'm no scared of thingamybobs. I'm going to get the berries. Bye-bye. And Owl flew away, and Squirrel went on down to the pond. And when she got there, she crept very quietly up to the edge of the pond, and she peered over the edge and looked in the water, and oh my! There was a thingy-bob in that pond. So she ran and she ran and she ran away back up the path until she met Owl again, and she said, "Owl, Owl, you were right. There is a thingy-bob in that pond, and I don't know what to do." "Well," said Owl, "why don't you go back and make the most horrible face at it? Maybe if you make a face at it, it'll run away." "Oh, all right then," said Squirrel. So Squirrel went away back down to the pond, and once again she crept up, and this time when she looked in the water she made a terrible face. But you know what? That thingy-bob made a terrible face back at her. So she ran all the way back up the path again until she met her friend Badger. And she said, "Oh, Badger, Badger, what am I going to do? You were right. There is a thingy-bob in that pond. And I tried making a terrible face at it, but it just made a face back at me." "Oh, I don't know," said Badger. "Why don't you try shaking your fist at it? Maybe that'll scare it away." "Oh, all right then," said Squirrel. "I'll try." And so Squirrel hopped off back down to the pond again, and this time when she peered into the water she went mmm. But you know what? That thingy-bob went back at her. Oh no! She ran all the way back up the path again until she met her friend Hedgehog. And she said, "You know, Hedgehog, you were right. There is a terrible thingy-bob in there. And I tried making faces at it, and I tried shaking my fist at it, but it won't go away. What am I going to do?" "Well, why don't you take a stick with you this time? Take a stick and shake a stick at it. That'll maybe make it go away." "Oh, all right then," said Squirrel. So Squirrel looked around and found a stick, and took a stick down to the pond with her. And this time when she looked into the water of the pond she lifted up the stick and shook the stick. But you know what? That thingy-bob had a stick as well, and it shook it back. Well, this time Squirrel just shot all the way home and told her mummy what had happened. And her mummy said, "You know, little Squirrel, why don't you try smiling at the thingy-bob? Maybe if you smile at it, it won't be so scary." So Squirrel said she would try, and so she skipped all the way back down to the pond again, and this time when she looked in the water she smiled. And you know what? The thingy-bob smiled back at her. And so Squirrel smiled again, and the thingy-bob smiled again, and soon, well, they were both laughing and giggling. And Squirrel wasn't afraid anymore. She gathered up all the berries and she took them home to her mum, and they had them for tea. And that's the end of my story. And if I tell you the title of the story, maybe you'll guess what it was that Squirrel saw in the pond. It's called Squirrels Reflection. So next time you're out and about, have a look in a puddle or have a look in a pond, and maybe you'll see a thingy-bob. Hope you enjoyed my story. Thanks for listening. Bye for now.